Well, hey there, sweetie.
Well, I think it's my turn to read. I think I'd like some tea to start. Would you like some more?
I think I'm fine for now, thank you.
Okay. If I remember correctly, our adventurers were just about to go and deal with the Limestone Plunderers.
Indeed. Which brings us to?
The chapter named Limestone Plunderers.
Clever.
Chief Inspector Erasmus Drake switched to his commanding voice. "Follow me, or all is lost." His stride was demanding, headed for the western bridge that led off Ile de la Cité. Sparky and Lord Ashley were putting serious effort into staying a step behind the determined law enforcer. Erasmus talked as they walked. "Changing tasks. Here is our status. We are late. The bricks are supposed to be transported from the Boulangerie on Rue Remy de Montcel at noon. That was an hour and 10 minutes ago. We are quite on our own here unless we can get one or more members of the Parisian police force to accompany us, which may not be easy given the haste we need to get there. Since Rue Remy de Montcel is just outside Paris on the southwest side, we should try to secure transportation. Here's the cabriolet now. Hurry!" The three of them rushed across the cobblestone bridge and sped up to the side of the vehicle, Erasmus holding the door for the other two, and provided directions to the driver in an earnest voice. Inside the cab, the conversation continued. "What do we have in the way of gaining the upper hand? I do not have my cane, but I do have my revolver. I really do not want to show it, much less use it, for obvious reasons. Your knife, Lord Ashley? My crepin? It is more ceremonial than utilitarian, but it will suffice if necessary." "Sparky?" Erasmus queried. "My fists. I didn't prepare for being threatening. Perhaps I should have kept the parasol. I could have frightened the misanthropes by asking them to hold it." She smiled despite the serious demeanor of her male companions, who just furrowed their brows at her, each for their own reasons. The driver did his job well, speeding through the streets of Paris. In the cab, they formulated a plan, more or less. At Rue Remy de Montcel, the vehicle came to a stop, and the troop piled out. Lord Ashley took the lead, since he knew the location and was the person who was expected. They headed down the cobblestoned alley on the side of the closed bakery, Sparky and Erasmus keeping their distance. Lord Ashley rounded the corner and was, as before, quite surprised by the scene. The entire back lot was filled with limestone bricks. Even the back of the bakery, with its door gaping down, was filled with bricks inside the building itself. The skittering of mechanical feet indicated to him that the limestone bricks were still being extracted, even though the neatly stacked columns were now a full 12 feet high. On the side, two men sat on the ground, bound and gagged, leaning up against a tree. They were clearly Mr. Hedgley and Mr. Martin. Lord Ashley ran over to them, concerned for their well-being. They might be criminals, but this was a beastly state in which to leave one's fellow man. As he approached, he couldn't help but notice that they were both obviously exhausted, perhaps from struggling against their restraints. But given the fact that they were still wearing the same clothes and the state of those garments were in, they probably had been toiling all through the night as well. Both men looked up with wild, pleading eyes at Lord Ashley's approach. Lord Ashley let an "oh my goodness" slip out and removed the gag from Mr. Martin, whom Lord Ashley thought was the nicer of the two and deserved the initial help. Mr. Martin took a deep gasp, as if he had trouble breathing. He looked at Lord Ashley and said, "Mr. Ashley, you have no idea how much I appreciate what you have just done." The twinkle in his eye stood out against his weary appearance. "Non, non, arrête de facar," came the shout from within the bakery. Two well-dressed men darted out of the back door. Lord Ashley turned around to see them, but did not understand their concern. At the same time, both Erasmus and Sparky appeared from hiding in the alley, taking in the entire bizarre spectacle. Erasmus recognized one of the gentlemen, Monsieur André Toc, from the IGC. They simultaneously point and said, "What are you doing here?" to each other, but with very different accents. Mr. Martin took center stage and announced, "It's been lovely, but we must be going." There was just enough time for Lord Ashley, Sparky, and Erasmus to make quizzical faces, and the other IGC agent to yell, "Non!" again. Mr. Martin pursed his lips and emitted a well-practiced, high-pitched whistle containing an odd pitch variation. It didn't last long, but it didn't need to. The mechanized bugs erupted out of the mineshaft in a solid wave of clamoring brass, flinging their limestone cargo in every direction except for the source of the whistle. They moved at an incredible speed over the 12-foot column of shining white bricks and down towards Mr. Hedgley and Mr. Martin like a living golden carpet, sentient and purposeful. Mr. Hedgley and Mr. Martin were scooped up onto the back of the arachnid forerunners that, with a pair of repurposed legs that now acted like carrying arms, rapidly unbound their masters. The men were borne on their metal backs as if they were as light as feathers. Without pause, the entire skittering parade tore down the cobblestone alley. The men had the gall to doff their hats and smile as they rode away. Out in the Rue Rémy du Moncel, women's screams and horses' whinnies erupted, continuing as the mechanical parade retreated into the distance. The fleeing carpet lasted a while. The last to go were the cutters with their radial saw faces and their shorter dachshund-like legs. Every one of the living kept their distance, plastered to walls to prevent having one of the bugs even touch them. To a person, the thought of fleeing rats was hard to keep out of their minds, and that instinctual repulsion of amassed vermin was unmistakably present. Then it was over, just as fast as it started, with the tail of the gleaming carpet disappearing into the alleyway. Everyone looked around before taking a step forward, inhaling deeply to compensate for the reflex of breath-holding during the mechanized exodus. Erasmus spoke first, directing his question to Monsieur Toque. What was going on here? This is a highly unusual way to deal with a crime of theft.
Chief Inspector, I don't know what you are talking about.
And here in Paris, I ask the questions, no? What are you and your companions doing here? My assumption is that you are helping these thieves and should be arrested. Erasmus was starting to get indignant. Pardon me, my good man, but I was trying to report this theft to you this morning. You pooh-poohed me then. My companions and I had to do something to protect the stability of the Parisian firmament, not to mention the theft of the stone itself.
Pooh-poohed?
Yes, dismissed, rejected, and rebuffed me.
Rebuffed? Are these English words?
At this point the conversation, Monsieur Toque smiled, but it was less about unexpected vocabulary and more to do with the arrival of the French workmen with wheelbarrows. The tenor of Monsieur Toque's conversation changed to congeniality as he continued. Chief Inspector, we at the IGC appreciate you helping in this matter, and I will personally see that this is properly resolved. Merci et au revoir. He shook Erasmus's hand and directed him, Sparky and Lord Ashley, towards the alley leading to the street. Slightly befuddled, they single-filed out through the alley as the workmen and the wheelbarrows single-filed in. Sparky was confused as to what had transpired. Does this make sense to you, Erasmus? Ah! She jumped to the side when she saw the movement in the shadows under a bit of discarded burlap. Erasmus carefully used the tip of his shoe to flip back the rough cloth scrap to reveal a lone E-pack with only 2 working legs on its left side and a crippled one on the right. The rest had been wrenched off. The machine could only make a sad semicircle and appeared to be out of energy even for that endeavor. Hoping that it didn't have a defensive mechanism, Erasmus slid his left hand under it, placed his right hand on top, and lifted the automaton. It was not light in weight. That was for sure. But not solid metal either. Erasmus got it high enough in the air to look at the underside, where there was a knurled knob in a recessed area at the bottom plate, similar to the setting mechanism on a pocket watch, and a small, movable, round handle. "Sparky, try moving that handle," Erasmus requested, hoping that her original fear had dissipated. She tentatively moved the handle along its path with 2 fingers. As soon as she managed the full throw of the switch, the legs suddenly went limp and hung loosely from its body. For whatever reason, the procession of workers paid no heed at all to this and appeared more than happy to get to the back of the bakery. Erasmus slipped off his coat, wrapped the brass contraption, and carried it like a heavy parcel under his arm. Back on the street, they had to walk a good distance to hail another cabriolet. The walk was filled with hushes from Erasmus, indicating he only wanted to talk in the privacy of their conveyance. Once inside, Erasmus was vocal. "Well, does that just knock the stuffing out of it? They were working both sides." Lord Ashley asked, "Do you think that they were in league with the thieves?" "No, but I think their goal was to appropriate the bricks after they were illegally mined. You can't put them back into the ground." Sparky thought for a second and then countered, "Perhaps they could. Since the IGC is working on retrofitting parts of the catacombs that are used for the public tours, those bricks could be used to spruce up the visited sections. They probably couldn't safely mine this area themselves, but they could use the product of the Limestone Plunderers. Excellent reasoning. We shall have to see if the newspapers report a grand improvement in the tunnels." Sparky added, "I'll see if this region has another cave-in." Erasmus looked at Lord Ashley and gestured to the window. "Would you be so kind? Your French is so much better than mine." Lord Ashley smiled, adding, "I would be delighted, my friend. Thank you both for our Parisian adventure." Lord Ashley stuck his head out the window and in his best French requested transport to the airship port. Erasmus patted his wrapped parcel and thought to himself, "Before we leave, I shall send this off to the only man I trust to determine the nature of this contraption, Dr. Edmund Pogue." Well, that finishes this chapter.
Excellent. Are we going to hear more about this Dr. Edmund Pogue, do you think?
We are, but
excellent.
That's to come.
I'll
Well,
have to be patient.
I hope you enjoyed that reading, and stay tuned for the next chapter. See you later.
Au revoir.